It's first day of the Frankfurt Motor Show.
Yes, it is. And the media will get the chance to have a look around at what's on offer at the Frankfurt Motor Show. The public will have to wait a couple of days. They're allowed in from Thursday. But this car show is the biggest of all the European car shows. 150 product launches are lined up over the next few days. And car makers are trying to be as optimistic as possible because while there have been pretty strong sales in places like China and the US, Europe is still really dragging things down for lots of them, particularly those that have a lot of production here, like Peugeot from here in France. For example, sales, in fact, in Europe were down by 6.6% in the first 6 months of the year, much stronger, as you can see there, in other parts of the world. Well, in terms of the big themes at this year's car show, electric cars seem to be the big one everyone's talking about, as the head of the German Car Industry Association now explains.
Electric mobility is no longer a dream. E-cars are hitting the road as purely battery-powered vehicles, as plug-in hybrid cars or as vehicles with an extended range. You will also see some fuel cell vehicles at this year's show.
Well, let's get some more news from the car industry now. And workers at the Hyundai plant in South Korea have settled a pay dispute. The package includes a 5% pay rise and a one-off bonus. Brings to an end a strike that began on August the 20th and is estimated to have cost $900 million in lost production.
Jaguar Land Rover is investing €1.75 billion at one of its UK plants. The extra investment will create 1,700 new jobs. The money going to be spent on new models. These include a mid-sized saloon car to be introduced in 2015.
And Toyota is recalling 870,000 cars in the US and Canada. That follows the discovery that initial repairs carried out during an earlier recall were not done properly. It's the second recall in a week issued by Toyota in the US.
Doesn't sound good for Toyota. Has it had any effect on the share price?
Well, actually, their share price was up very slightly, 0.3% in Tokyo, and that reflected really the broader rises that we've seen on Asian markets. You can see the overall growth in the Nikkei in Japan was much stronger than that Toyota increase, up 1.5%. Followed a pretty positive session on Wall Street on Monday when the Nasdaq, the mostly technology stocks there, closed at its highest level in almost 13 years. And well, let's stay in the US to talk about one of the key areas there, the property market, which has been one of the biggest casualties of this whole crisis, and nowhere more so really than Florida. But the property market in Miami has been showing strong signs of growth again, as Stephen Carroll now reports.
Dotted with millionaires' mansions, Miami's seafront doesn't show many signs of an economic crash. But the city was at the epicenter of the property crisis in 2007. Today, that's a distant memory. Kobe Karp is one of Miami's top architects. With new developments popping up, his business is once again booming.
Right now, we're back to the velocity and the volume that we were before the recession. Certainly so, and even a little bit more.
The cranes aren't the only things going up in Miami. In August, the average price of a detached house was 25% higher than last year. That's attracted investors like John to the market.
It's a good investment. You got this new project coming down there. There's no way you can lose money with this. I mean, it's going to go straight up.
To convince John to buy this studio apartment for almost $500,000, the agent is offering a 3-year exemption from management fees. Deals like that have seen almost all of these 800 apartments sold in the past 10 months.
98 of our buyers are investors from out of the country that want to purchase something here. They know the time to buy is now.
With mortgage lending still restricted, many more people are buying in cash or with finance from abroad. It's a calculated risk. Property analysts say an investor today can expect a return of 40% within 5 years.
And finally, the technology sector is going to have its eyes on California later this Tuesday.
That's right. Apple is expected to launch 2 new iPhone models. 2 new iPhones, not just one, but 2. Now, there's been a lot of talk, of course, about this. None of it's confirmed yet, but this is what's expected. One is the 5S, as it's being called. Now, that's a higher-end, upgraded version of the iPhone. Could even come in new colours than just the black and the white that we've seen before. Champagne colour, I've seen mentioned. I think that's one for you there, Stuart.
Very definitely.
The other one, dubbed the 5C, is a low-cost version, and that's potentially going to come in a variety of colours and will be aimed more at emerging markets for Apple to increase its share there. But of course, we won't know any of this until about 7 o'clock Paris time later today. But of course, at France 24, we'll be keeping an eye on all new things Apple.
Of course we will. Do either do the ironing yet?
Not quite yet.
Not quite yet. Well, see, I'm not interested. All right, Apple, if you come up with that, I'll get one. Matthew, thanks a lot. Matthew with Business here on France 24. Now, we've got new images of the area around Fukushima from Google Street View coming up very shortly for you. Web News, though, starts today with news from Moscow.
Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny and his supporters have taken to Twitter to contest the results of Moscow's mayoral election, which cleared incumbent mayor and Kremlin-backed Sergei Sobyanin for a first-round victory. Anti-corruption blogger Navalny, who describes himself as a nationalist Democrat, has denounced clear falsifications in the vote, using footage from webcams installed in polling stations across the Russian capital to argue his case. Here, for example, Electoral Commission officials are said to be rigging the ballot results under police protection. The mobile urn system set up for voters unable to get to polling stations is also under scrutiny. It's suspected that this voting from home process opened the door to all manner of irregularities during voting day on Sunday. Accusations that are also backed up by surveys conducted by Alexei Navalny's teams as voters left the polling stations. According to figures published on his blog, the race was much closer than announced, and Sergei Sobyanin did not apparently reach the 50% threshold required to secure victory in the first round. And so the blogger and his supporters say they do not recognise the official results and are calling for a second round ballot, threatening mass protests if the authorities refuse. Sad news for all those that campaigned for its release. As reported on Facebook by an Egyptian nature conservation group, the stork, which they named Menace, that was detained and then briefly imprisoned at the end of August by Egyptian authorities on suspicion of carrying a spying device, was killed and eaten by hunters on Nile Island this weekend. A tragic end for the bird that touched the hearts of web users the world over and saw social networkers posting under the hashtag #SpyDuck to openly make fun of the Egyptian authorities in this strange story, which many see as a prime example of the regime's paranoia over foreign interest. A deluge of commentary that prompted the authorities to release the bird back into the wild last Tuesday, much to the joy of those who fought online for its freedom. But the happiness was short-lived, as several days later, the stork was killed. A sad ending which has sparked a fresh wave of emotion online, with web users from across the globe paying tribute to the late spy stork. Web users in the Philippines have been posting under the hashtag #PrayForZamboanga, with messages of solidarity for residents of Zamboanga on the southern island of Mindanao. The city saw violent clashes on Monday between security forces and supporters of the Moro National Liberation Front, the MNLF, who are opposed to peace talks with Manila. The clashes have reportedly left several people dead and many others injured, and have sparked strong concerns among local web users who have been posting messages online appealing for calm. Collapsed houses, deserted streets in ghost towns. Google Street View has released new images of areas evacuated after the reactor meltdowns at the Fukushima nuclear power plant in March 2011. Photographs from a dozen or so localities in this northeastern region of Japan have been compiled on the site Mirai o Kyoku, which means memories for the future, and you can compare them to the same shots taken before the disaster. 3D artist Chris Carlson is back with a new piece of three-dimensional chalk art. He's brought video game Mario Kart into the real world. And the results, as we can see in this stop-motion video, are pretty impressive indeed. A surefire hit with retro video games enthusiasts everywhere.
That's Video of the Day on France 24, part of Web News, of course. Coming up for you next, the very latest on the situation in Syria. Going to be talking as well to our correspondent Douglas Herbert, our international affairs editor here on set. And we have an exclusive report for you from Kashmir following the military as they set up to try to counter the spread of the Taliban across the region. That's in Asia Live in the next half hour. Stay with us if you can.